And from a Torah perspective, from our perspective, why is there so much opposition to a Jewish state? How did anti-Semitism become anti-Zionism and why? That's the first 6 chapters.
You're not talking about anti-Zionism from within the Jewish people. No, you're talking about from the Arabs and everything.
Arabs and the West and the world. Why? Not the Ashkafic debate within Judaism.
Right,
How is it that in the world today, the locus of anti-Semitism is anti the Jewish state? How did that happen and why did that happen?
So Jonathan Sachs said the whole thing how it's a
virus.
How it's a virus and how it.
So that I have a whole.
Anti-Semitism
mutates. It's exactly So here, I've got the first chapter is a chiddush of the Gra, and the chapter 3 is the pandemic, the mutating virus of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a virus of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. So this chapter is all from Rabbi Sachs.
Rabbi Sachs,
That's the Rabbi Sachs chapter. Yeah, he's got good stuff. And then the second part is Rav Kook, a vision for Jewish unity and why the world is. You got one? Go ahead. Ah, tzaddik.
You have more books that I can grab.
I'll give it. You got this book, Acheinu? You don't have my book? No. So I must give it to you. Yeah. I've only got one. I don't have. Come off, so I'll give you one. Right.
He's promoting his book. I promote my what I just made, Rabbi.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
What's your names again? Your first names?
Yossi.
Yeah.
And Risa.
How do you spell Yossi?
R-I-S-A.
Y-U-S. That's fine. Always fine.
Y-U-S.
S-S-I.
And
R-I-S-A.
Pleasure.
Who have come in to help Mizrachi drum up votes, and we met her.
My wife always makes fun of me.
Oh yeah, Daniel brought a whole bunch of soldiers
I just made an
here.
album.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Daniel's the latest
It's called Then and Now.
followed by our president in-house
Eliyav
Jacobs.
Sorry.
Eliyav
And we'll hear from Rav Perez.
Give us a lot of chizuk.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the front.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay,
sorry.
we'll talk later.
Thank you.
I did this 60 years ago. I'm singing together with myself now.
Wow. You know, you're going to have to join me now for Acheinu. Okay?
Would have just
Don't worry, Jeff. I'm doing Shebeirach first and I'm calling you for Acheinu. Okay? Thank you.
Did he found this together with two of them?
Sure. You'll put some stickers for people to take, okay?
The reality is that that was a test. If you see how small the print is on the back of that card, the Army asked us to test Daniel's eyesight.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, but it's okay. I'm going to ask you. Tell me some questions because you're going to ask me to join me for both my first. Look. Oh. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Please join me for Shebeirach for our Chayalim. Shebeirach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov Hu Yevarech Es Chayalei Svagana Yisrael Hu Yevarech Es Chayalei Svagana LeYisrael Hu Yevarech Es Chayalei Svagana LeYisrael Ovomtim Al Mishmar Artzeinu V'yorei Eloheinu Migvul HaLevanon V'yad Midbar Misrayim Umin Hayam Agado Alevo Arava
Bayabasha Oy Bawavir Bavir Ayuvayam Uyevarech Es Chayalei Svagana LeYisrael Yiten Adonai Es Oiveinu Hakamim Aleinu Nigafim Livnehem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yishmor v'yasil es Chayaleinu Mikol Sarah v'Sukkah U'Mikol Nego Machala Vishlach Baracha v'Aslacha B'chol Maseh Yedehem Yadber Sonehem Tachtehem V'Tarem B'Chesed Yeshua U'Vater Nisachon V'Koyam B'Hem HaKatuv Ki Adonai Elohechem Ha'olech imachem Lehilachem lachem Im ho'evechem Le'oshia eschem V'nomar Amen. If you could all please stay standing, I would like to call up Yossi Sonnenblick, sorry, to please join me for Acheinu.
Tell me. It works? Yeah? My apologies.
I would have known. I would have wanted to tell you.
Tell me. Go.
Please join us as we pray for all our hostages who are still in Gaza. Please join us.
Acheinu, Kol Beis Yisrael. Acheinu, Kol Beis Yisrael. Amisurim Batzorah, Tzorah Uvashivya, Omdim Vei Bayam, Vei Bayabasha.
Acheinu, Kol Beis Yisrael. Acheinu, Kol Beis Yisrael. Hanisunim Batzorah, Batzorah Uvashivya, Avoimdim Beim Bayam, Uveim Bayabasham.
Amakom Yirachem Aleim Yotziei Mitzara Liracham Umeafein Aliyara Nishivot Regiula Ashtav HaKala Ulizman Karim
Amakim Yerachem Aleim V'yotziyem Mitzara Lirvacha Umeafeil Aliyayra Mishibot Hailigeyula Hashta Bahagala Uvizman Karim Vehimeru Amen.
There you go. Sure, thank you. Thank you. Oh,
Okay, so
thank you so much. Thank you.
Shalom.
started
Great to hear you.
Next time we'll have a 5-minute
February
rehearsal.
2023.
I'm
We
trying,
built
thank you.
very quickly a network of partners from as far away as Baltimore and LA, but as close as Englewood and Teaneck, New Jersey. So
What's your
one of
name?
the guys that we've been working with
Pleasure. Thank you.
literally since the first few days of the war is also here as part of the Mizrachi. and has been really instrumental in bringing Rav Doron here. So Ari Woltelski, please take
Sholom.
the mic, introduce yourself, and introduce Rav Doron.
Thank you very much. As I call him Mark, but he told me I can't do that anymore.
Love to hear him.
As Moshe said,
Love to hear him.
on October 8th and 9th, when people around the world were starting to wake up at the what's going on, that's a little bit of what happened. Moshe will appreciate this. Somebody posted on one of our chats in Teaneck, I'm looking to send something to Long Island because they're collecting stuff.
Right.
And then another person sent it. And we were like, guys, why are we all trying to find something to send it? Why don't we all send it together? That was our initial thought. And then it became, we'll have to rent a truck. And then next thing you know, I'm like, Mike, what are we doing now? How are we going to rent to Israel? And that being said, I just want to, I don't really introduce, I don't really talk. I'm the campaign manager for Mizrachi, and I hide behind Rav Doron because he's such a role model and a legend and an incredible team here from Israel. But I felt like I'm in this building, which I've heard so much about, and I feel like it's Admas Kodesh, the amount of incredible work that you guys as a community have done, very much under the leadership of Moshe and Jeff, and I don't think you appreciate the work that they put into it, and you should, and you have to. And without people like that, or leaders like that, this would not have happened, and I have seen, because I've seen the bags on the other side, I've seen the pictures, I've been part of the conversations, and it's incredible. And sometimes I explain to people how what we do in New Jersey and Bergen County is very nice, very impressive, but it doesn't compare. So this is incredible. It's like, I don't think you can ever sell this building now, like, because how long they're like, that's like become like this Mikdash. I'm not sure like what the rule is, but like this is a holy, holy place right now, and keep up your work. The little thing I can do is present to Jeff and to Moshe OIC sweatshirts. Very much welcome, right? I'm not going to say what size they are, but what we have. So enjoy. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. B'chavod gadol, I would like to introduce Rav Doron Perez, who really needs no introduction. He will share his story and a few words. I've had the pleasure of getting to know him very well, and there's 22 slates running in this election. If there's anyone on any slate that compares to Rav Doron, go vote for them, okay? But otherwise, this is what you're voting for. This is our role model. This is who we look to and say, wow, that's what we should all be like. So for Chavod Gadol, Rav Doron.
Thanks. Go ahead. Thanks. What am I doing? That's fine. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm just going to use this. I don't need it.
When do you want
In a few minutes, yeah. I'll say a few words first, and then we'll. It really is a pleasure and a privilege to be with you in this wonderful establishment. I don't know what the right word is. Center. I think Moshe. But before I get to Moshe and Jeff, I think that Ari Wartelski, who's our campaign manager and does so much work, and thank you, Ari, for running across the whole United States and schlepping me everywhere we need to go. No place is too close or too far. Thank you. But I think you just said something, Ari, that I think you really hit the nail on the head of what this place is about. You said you feel that this place is Admat Kodesh, and I really believe it is, and I'm going to prove to you why. We say a few times a day in the Shema, the end of the second parak of the Shema, we say, Leman yirbu yemechem, yimei bnechem, al ha'adama asher nishba lachem. We say at the second parak of the Shema that in order that we keep all the mitzvot, Leman yirbu yemechem, in order to have length of days, yimei bnechem, and our children and our children's children, al ha'adama, and the land of Israel. So listen to what the Talmud, the Gemara, says in Masechet Shabbat, in Masechet Brachot Avchet, and we learn an unbelievable principle from this. The Gemara says, Ika Saveh Babel, can there be elderly people
outside of Israel? How do people live long life outside of Israel? There's an explicit pasuk which says, "Leman yirbu yamechem," that long life is only in Eretz Israel. So Rabbi Yochanan says, "Ika save b'Bavel, can there be elderly people in Babel? How can it be? We look around the world and Jews live to a long life in America, at Me'av Yesrim, and in Babylon, and in South Africa, and as long as people live in Israel. How can it be? It's against a verse in the Pasuk. The Pasuk says only long life in Eretz Israel. That's what it says in the Shema. Answers the Gemara, since people come early to shul, since people come early to shul and leave late, and they're part of the Beit Knesset, they experience long life. And that's how the Gemara ends. Says the Kli Yakar in his commentary on the Torah, and the Maharsha on his commentary in the Gemara, they ask exactly the same question. They said, this is Chinese, what are you talking about? What was the question? How can there be people who live long life in Babel? Why? Because the Pasuk says that people, long life is promised only in Eretz Yisrael. Answer, people come early and late, they spend a lot of time in the Beit Knesset. What's that got to do with anything? How does spending time in the Beit Knesset, what has that got to do with long life in Eretz Yisrael? You ask a question and you give an answer which has got nothing to do with the question. Both the Maharsha in his commentary on the Gemara, as well as the Kli Yakar in his commentary on the Torah in Devarim Yud Aleph, ask exactly the same question, and they give exactly the same answer. He says, from here we prove that the land that the shul, the Beit Knesset, is built on in Chutz La'aretz, Admat Eretz Yisrael. A shul in Chutz La'aretz is actually a mini Israel. Have you been to mini Israel in Israel? The real mini Israel is a shul in Chutz La'aretz. That's why the Maharsha says, it says at the end of Masechet Megillah, Atidin Batei Knesiot uBatei Midrashot, in the future, all the Batei Knesset and the Batei Midrash in Chutz La'aretz, Ya'akru Eretz Yisrael, are going to be uprooted and make their way to Eretz Yisrael. It brings the Pasuk. Why only the Batei Knesset, the Batei Midrash? Why not our homes and our mikvot and all types of things? Why only the Batei Knesset, the Beit Midrash? Because these places are a mini Israel. It's what sustained the Jewish people in the diaspora. And what has been that? Community, Jewish community. It's brought people together. We davened as a minyan, you davened with 10, a mini Am Yisrael, 10 people davening together. And says the Maharsha and the Kli Yakar, you see that a Jewish community in Chutz La'aretz is actually supposed to be a mini Israel. And therefore, if you spend time clinging to the Jewish community and clinging to the Beit Knesset and the Beit Midrash, you're actually clinging to Admat Eretz Yisrael. Do you know why this is such a chidush? Because we associate a shul in Chutz La'aretz with a mini Beit HaMikdash. It says in the Iver Yechezkel, Va'ihi lachem mikdash ma'at. You know, when we build a Beit Knesset, how do we shape it? We shape it like a mini Beit HaMikdash. Firstly, where do all the Batei Knesset in Chutz La'aretz face? Yerushalayim, Eretz Yisrael. Secondly, they look like a little Mishkan and Beit Mikdash. They've all got a Aron HaKodesh, Ner Tamid. They've got a Bima, an Amud, like the Mizbeach, Achitzon, V'Apnimi. The whole thing is built like a mini Beit Mikdash. And the Beit Knesset has got the feeling of a mini Beit HaMikdash, that we took Yerushalayim with us into the diaspora to ensure that we have our connection to Yerushalayim. The chidush of this Gemara, according to the Kli Yakar and according to the Maharsha, is that not only is a Beit Knesset, a Jewish community in Chutz La'aretz, a Beit Midrash, a mini Beit Mikdash, it's also a mini Eretz Yisrael. Not in every community I walk into in Chutz La'aretz do you feel that it's a mini Israel. Some places don't say a prayer for Israel, don't say a prayer for Chayalim. Some Batei Knesset feel more like there's a Mikdash, but it doesn't feel like Admat Eretz Yisrael. Sometimes it's distant from what's going through in Eretz Yisrael. How can you not be connected? How can you, at the very least, not say a prayer for the soldiers, even in your own way, even if it's not the prayer that the chief rabbinate? Do you walk into the shul and do you feel Eretz Yisrael? Our sages are saying that you're supposed to walk into a shul in Chutz La'aretz and feel that it's Admat Eretz Yisrael. So I think you walk into the Chesed Center and boy oh boy, do we feel Eretz Yisrael. So I think you're 100% right. This center is exactly what a community center in Chutz La'aretz is supposed to feel like. It's supposed to feel like that you walk in here and you feel like you're in Admat Eretz Yisrael. You feel the pain of the Jewish people. You feel the exhilaration of the Jewish people, especially since October 7th. So I want to say a massive round of applause to Moshe and to Jeff for everything they've done in the center. Shkoyach. Really, it's unbelievable. And it really does feel here like Admat Eretz Yisrael. I do want to give something to Moshe. Come here, Moshe. And I've only got one book here, but Jeff, I will get you a book as well. I just seem to have one, but I will send you one, Bli Neder. This is a book that some of you may know. It's a book called One Day in October. It has 40 incredible stories. It's actually 42 stories. 42 incredible stories of bravery on the day, on the 7th of October, on Simchat Torah. And this particular volume of Koreh in English is dedicated to our son. The donors who gave the money to it are from South Africa, from the community that I had the privilege of being the rabbi of. And they were approached by Koreh, and it's dedicated to our son. And our son's story is in this book. It's called If Not Me, Then Who? And I want to give you a copy of the book and a sticker. There's a sticker for you, Jeff, but there will be a book for you as well. I would have written, Dear Moshe and
Come
Jeff.
and get your sticker.
Yeah, come and get your sticker. But I might have another one for you, and if I don't, we'll send you one. So it's called One Day in October, and the sticker of our son, which I'm going to speak a bit about, If Not Me, Then Who, is actually the topic of his story in the book. It's If Not Me, Then Who. So it feels funny to give you a sticker and you a book, but okay, he said that. So, but you will get a book as well, so let's have a picture somewhere. So a massive round of applause to Jeff and to Moshe. Go.
Well done.
Saratoga got your book, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think what this center is all about is really about the success story of the Jewish people. I think one thing that Hamas grossly underestimated on October 7th, was who the Jewish people are. Yeah, they took us by surprise. They killed over 1,200 of our people, including our son Daniel. They took 250 people hostage, and they still have 59, 25, 24 alive. Hopefully, the majority there's a sign of life, and 35 deceased, including our son Daniel. And they exacted the type of barbarism, the type of just subhuman behavior which they continue to do until this day, which we as Jews and as Westerners just can't understand. But they underestimated what the Jewish response would be. They didn't realize that spilling Jewish blood in the most indiscriminate way brings the Jewish people together. It reveals to us who sometimes we forget we are in times of peace. We sometimes think as Jews we've got the luxury to argue ourselves to death. And we really took it too far until October 6th, the whole judicial reform, and without getting into it. Without even getting into it, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. In my opinion, there has to be some type of judicial reform in Israel. The vast majority of Israelis agree with that, from Yair Lapid, from left to right. They're all on record saying that. But it doesn't matter whether there should or shouldn't be judicial reform. You can't tear Israel apart for the sake of any truth. What bothered me so much on October 6th was how, and I wrote a lot about this, that the sides just stopped listening to each other. The right wing had the majority and wanted to do judicial reform, and it didn't matter how much the left would kick and scream and shout. And I noticed a lot of moderate people on the left behaving like extremists. I always say when the moderates behave like extremists, be careful. When the extremists behave like extremists, well, what else do you expect? They're extremists. When the moderates start becoming extreme, when there's no middle ground, be careful. I felt on October 6th there was no middle ground in Israel. The sides not only they couldn't talk to each other, they couldn't even hear each other. It didn't matter how much the left were kicking and screaming. The right said, no, that's our right, so we're going to keep playing ahead. And it didn't matter how much the right wing said, it has to be that more power is given to the electorate and not to the Supreme Court in Israel. And I don't want to go into this topic now, but it's not what I want to say. People couldn't hear each other. People couldn't hear each other. And I sometimes say in the arguments amongst the Jewish people, beware. Hamas are listening to what we're saying. Sinwar heard every word, and when people said they wouldn't appear for reserve duty and pilots wouldn't fly, he thought that's what's going to happen. And this we know from evidence which was found in Sinwar's home, Yamach Shalom, that he really thought the Jewish people were imploding, Israeli society was imploding. And there's a whole theory behind this. Hassan Nasrallah Yamach Shalom has written much about Israeli society, that he calls it's a cobweb, it's a spider's web. His theory called Korea Kavish, that the Jewish people are weak, and it's only a question of time before Israel falls, as did the first Commonwealth and as did the second Commonwealth, and so too will this, it'll implode because of its own internal incohesion. He said a spider's web looks very, very strong, but it's actually not so strong. In one fell swoop, you can destroy it. It looks very intricate, and it's got all fancy systems. You can bring down all the fancy systems in Israel in a second, because it's dependent on the cohesion in society. And Israeli society doesn't have that cohesion, says Hassan Nasrallah. And therefore, this attack really took us by surprise. We forgot that we live in a very difficult neighborhood of Shebechol Dor Vador Umdim Aleinu L'Chaloteinu. We don't have the luxury to tear ourselves apart internally. On October 6th, Hamas were poised. We're lucky. We're lucky as a people. Our families, and many families, are not lucky. We lost and those dearest to us. But I think as a people, we're lucky. When I sat in an 11-hour presentation of the army 5 weeks ago to all those who lost children in Nachal Oz about blow by blow what happened on that day, what happened to our tank, all of the military intelligence lacunas on the day. And I came out of that day with so many different feelings, but with one feeling is, how did 6,500 terrorists who had, 5,500 terrorists who had free reign on that day? I don't know if you're aware that some of the places in the Gaza envelope, the Israeli army arrived only after the last terrorist had left. The worst hit place on the day was in Nir Oz. More people per capita were killed and taken captive in Nir Oz than anywhere else. The army only arrived in Nir Oz after the last terrorist had left. It's a miracle that anybody survived from Nir Oz. How is it that only 1,200 people killed us? Only in Merchot, Kfulot, Mechupalot, every loss, our son, and all 1,200 is a Olam Amlo. 5,500 terrorists, free reign, a party of 3,600 youngsters, people across the Gaza envelope, only, in inverted commas, 1,200, should have been 10,000. Imagine if Hezbollah would have joined on that day. Imagine if Hezbollah would have sent the 40,000 Radwan forces over the border on that day. Imagine if Iran would have sent 500 ballistic missiles on that day, and the Houthis. Imagine if the Arabs, the Muslims in East Jerusalem had walked into West Jerusalem, and of Beit Lechem, heaven forbid, into Efrat, and Kalkilia into Netanya, and Ramla and Lod into Tel Aviv. I really believe in another day, Israel could have fallen. We came close. While we were arguing ourselves to death and protesting the Yom Kippur davening of people davening to Zingoff Center, these idiotic arguments that we had, and taking everything which is so holy to us and making everything about politics. And I'm not here looking at right or left, it's both. We're all responsible for the role that we play in tearing Israel apart at its seams. Hashem, with all the pain in that day, shined his face upon us. It was a horrific day in Jewish history, but it's a day that could have been much worse. I think what saved us on that day, besides the grace of God, was a lot that's written about in this book, One Day in October, is this Arvut Hadadit, this Chesed center that the Jewish people have, of all for one and one for all. When you strip us down to our core, there's such a deep care and concern for each other. And we've seen Israelis from across the board and Jews from across the board will drop everything, leave the comfort of their homes. There's an Ethiopian soldier, he's the one who I think Bibi pointed out at the UN, who ran 11 kilometers, just ran 11 kilometers to fight against Hamas. My son Jonathan got in the car at 8 o'clock in the morning and drove 170 kilometers an hour to arrive in Sderot at 8:30 to fight until he was injured at 2:45. And these are part of thousands and thousands and thousands of civilians and soldiers who dropped everything and came not knowing how they were fighting and who they were fighting against on that day. 120,000 soldiers within one day were on the border with Lebanon. And thankfully, Nadadash Natamelech, while Nasrallah was debating whether to enter the fray, he waited one day too long. And by the next day, thankfully, there were 120,000 soldiers. It was too late for him. What saved us on that day, besides Hashem's divine providence, is both his providence, his love for us, and our love for each other. It's a pity we only see this in times of tsuras. We need to see it a lot more in times of the good times. We saw it for a moment at Har Sinai. We stood at Mount Sinai, Ke'ish echad, b'lev echad. And the Midrash says, had we not stood together as one person, one heart, we wouldn't have received the Torah. We had to be there together to receive the Torah. And I think that's the reason why our sages say, we just had Purim, our sages say a very strange expression. It says a number of times in the Megillah, Kiemu v'kiblu ayudim. Kiemu ma shekiblu kvar. The Talmud, the Gemara says that we re-accepted the Torah. Mikan mod'ara ba'al oraita, says Rabbi. Here's a great teaching, great announcement. And what is that? That the Jewish people re-accepted the Torah in Purim. What does that mean? Where does it say in the Megillah that we re-accepted the Torah? It says, Kiemu v'kiblu. In what way did we re-accept the Torah? A number of the Rishonim and Achronim say, do you know what made us recommit to Jewish destiny? Is when we realized that Haman conjured up a plan to kill every single Jew in every single country on one day. There's never been an anti-Semite like Haman, not before, not after. In terms of his achievements, he's not very impressive. Hitler, Yamach Shemo, killed 6 million of our brethren. Thankfully, Haman didn't kill one. But he almost succeeded in killing every single one. It was close. He was the only human being in the history of the world who planned the execution of every single day, of every single Jew, in every single country in the world on one day. And he almost succeeded. He had people running around the world. He had his decrees of Achashverosh translated into every single language. He galvanized the anti-Semites everywhere in the world, and everybody was waiting. And we've seen post-October 7th how anti-Semites under our noses in a moment can be galvanized, even in the United States of America. And in every country in the world, they were poised, Rahman litzlan, to kill the Jews. And the Talmud, the Gemara says in Masechet Megillah, an unbelievable thing. Gdola hasarat hatabat. Do you know what the greatest act of Jewish unity in the history of the world was? When Achashverosh took his signet ring off, and Haman managed to convince him to sign the decree, Rahman litzlan, to have every Jew killed in every community on one day. That act was the greatest act of Jewish unity in the history of the world. It says that act, listen to this, it's sad. That act, says the Talmud, unified the Jewish people more than the words of the 48 male prophets and 7 female prophets. That's the wording of the Gemara. Meaning 1,000 years of biblical history did less to unify the Jewish people than the one act of the great anti-Semite saying, you know what, I don't really care who eats in whose home. I don't really care what kashrut you have. I don't even care if your conversions are accepted. I don't care if you're Reform, Conservative, or Orthodox. I don't care about anything. The only good Jew is a dead Jew. And you know what? I don't care your halachic definitions, the Nuremberg laws, Hitler will go back through. If you've got any Jewish blood, it's over. What did Haman say? Yeshno am echad. There is one people, but they don't behave like one people. Mefuzar umefurad bein hamim. They have a strange aberration. Yeah, they're one people. But you know what? They don't behave like one people. They're mefuzar. Do you know of any one people which live in every single country in the world? You'll find a Jew anywhere. Anywhere. Just go anywhere in the world, there's a Jew and there's a Chabad house. Baruch Hashem. Thank God for Chabad. Remember Star Trek, to go where no man will go before? If there's a Jew who lives there, or a Jew's going to come on a teal there, there'll be a Chabadnik there. Right? Because we somehow get everywhere. Can there be a place on terra firma somewhere in the world that the Jew hasn't been to and has a Jewish community there? What type of people are these people? They're one people, but they live everywhere. Secondly, they're not only geographically mefuzar, they're mefurad. They don't even eat. You won't believe it. They don't eat each other's food. There's 55,000 hechsherim. And this one just eats the chicken of that rabbi. And this one eats the meat of that rabbi. And you've got to show how from you are that, no, we kosher, but we only eat that rabbi. Says Haman, what type of people is this? What type of people is this? Geographically dislocated everywhere in the world, argue each other to death over like what food people eat. Mufurad, they internally dispersed. He said, Ein shaveh hanezek lamelech lanicham. These people have to go. Says Rav Kook, that's only when you look at the Jewish people externally. When you look at the Jewish people externally, as Hamas do, and as Nasrallah did, and as Haman, Yamach Shemam all do, we really look like a strange aberration. We seem to be one people, but we don't act like one people. We're dispersed everywhere in the world, and we just can't get on with each other. But that's chitzoniut. That's what it looks like when you look from the eye, from the outside. It says, Rav Kook, who are the Jewish people? Be'emet, yeshno am echad. They're one people. And when you scratch the surface, you see who we really are. Sometimes we ourselves get caught up in chitzoniut. Nobody cares for each other like the Jewish people. No nation on earth will fight for every hostage the way the Jewish people were. And they know that. They've got us at our strongest point, which is our weakest point. Because our enemies have taken our strongest point and made it our Achilles heel. They know that as long as there's one live hostage in Gaza, we'll turn the world upside down to get them back. We'll pay prices we shouldn't pay. Should we have paid 1,100 terrorists, including Yehia Sinwar, to release Gilad Shalit? I don't know if it's the right thing to do. But I know one thing, the Jews are going to have that debate. We're not going to leave one of our own to die a captive in Gaza. But what price should we pay? I don't know what the price is, but I know that we're going to debate it, and we're going to think about it, and we're going to cry over it, we're going to protest it, because that's who we are. The value of every single Jew. We have taught the world that every single human being is created in the image of God, and we don't give up on our brothers. We care about human life of the Palestinians more than Hamas does for their own. Because all people are created in the image of God. And therefore, the moment the Taba'at came off, and the moment the decree was issued, in one moment the Jews came together, Ke'ish echad b'lev echad. And whenever we come together, Ke'ish echad b'lev echad, that's a Mount Sinai moment. The Jews feel we won. And we recommitted to the Torah because we tapped in on that day to Jewish destiny, that Yesh Na'am Echad. Despite the differences, and despite the different views, and despite the arguments, and despite who does eat in each other's home and who doesn't, and despite all the machlokot that we have, there's a care for human life, and a care for Jewish destiny, and a care for each other, unlike any other people. And that's what the Chesed Center is about. It's about this care. And Moshe was telling me just how this whole thing happened, and it's just unbelievable. I know at Mizrachi we had the zchut of hosting in the last 18 months about 150 solidarity missions. I met some of you in these missions. We started a whole missions department because it's a Jewish people. You know, not everybody, I think, until October 6th, 7th, their airline of choice was El Al. I will say it was always my airline of choice. I'm just putting it out there. Not everybody flew El Al. You know, it's a Jewish airline, you know everybody, you can't get a chance to sleep, everybody's walking around, everybody's arguing with everybody. It's a Jewish airline, Baruch Hashem. There's a minyan, and you try to sleep, and you're trying to think, and should you daven in the minyan, and it's a Baruch Hashem, it's a Jewish airline. And most of the year, as you all know, year and a half, like in the Gulf War, like at other times, the non-Jewish airlines don't fly to Israel. It's not expedient, it's not good for business, it's, you know. And it all flies, and it flies, and it flies, and it flies. I remember the head of El Al many years ago. His name was Eliezer Shkeli. He himself was the head of the Air Force, parent of a son of Holocaust survivors. He was the one who many years ago was responsible for the flyover of Auschwitz. If you saw the Israeli planes flying over Auschwitz. He came to talk in our community in South Africa when I was the rabbi of the community, about 17, 18 years ago. And he said a very powerful thing that I've never forgotten. He said, you know, El Al Israel Airlines is not part of any star alliance. It's not part of Asian star alliances, European star alliances. It's not part of any star alliance. Nobody wants El Al. But he said we don't need those star alliances because we're part of the greatest star alliance in history, and that's the Jewish people. And when the Jewish people stick together, boy oh boy does the world learn the value of human life and the value of one Jewish life and one human life. And this is our greatest challenge. It's our greatest challenge, in my humble opinion. I want to share with you a brief video. Some of you may have seen this. I showed it when I was here. It's online. I showed it when I was at Young Israel at Woodmere. I just want to share it with you. It's 8 minutes long. And I just want to give one reflection about, if not me, then who? And then one final word before he has to say a few words about the election. So it's 8 minutes long. It's a little bit about our son and about what he did on that day. And I'll just have one or two reflections thereafter.
צה"ל מכיר בשעה זו לפרסום על דבר מותו של חטוף נוסף, סרן דניאל פרץ, זכרו לברכה.
On October 7th, Captain Daniel Perez was a 22-year-old commander of a tank unit stationed at Nahal Oz base on the Gaza border. Along with thousands of Israelis, Daniel was called upon to put his life on the line on perhaps the most fateful day in Israel's modern history. Taken hostage with 2 crew members, Daniel was declared dead 163 days later. His body has yet to be returned to Israel for burial. His father, Rav Doron Perez, the executive chairman of World Mizrachi, takes us through Daniel's journey from a self-focused teenager to a self-actualizing young man to a selfless hero.
Daniel was the most energetic, ADHD, fun-loving teenager you could ever imagine. I think he was the happiest when he was with his friends. He had so many friends from every stage of life, from South Africa, Israel, religious, secular backgrounds, all types. Daniel, I think, was the best friend you could have, so beloved and so invested. His older brother Jonathan and him were the best of friends, close since they were small, growing up together. They would play, have fun, and fight with each other. And indeed, when they grew older, they connected about challenges in the army, life, and leadership. Deep bonds of brotherly love. 1, 2, 3, salute. Yes, you're not saying the Shema, man. Just, okay, guys, show us how you march. March around the room. Let's do the soldiers march. He absolutely loved sport, especially high-octane extreme sports, whether it was being a super fast ice skater, wakeboarding, whether he was going full speed over a ramp, doing 360-degree flips in the air. No one loved high-octane energy more than Daniel. Eventually, during a wakeboarding accident, he fell, tearing some ligaments and cartilages in his knee. Despite operations and 9 months of physical therapy, Daniel was disqualified from combat. He would have to give up on his dream of being in the Sayeret Commando of Golani. Despite being clever and quick on the uptake, Daniel would not have been satisfied with a desk job. He felt he needed to direct his prodigious energies towards combat, so he actually fought with the army doctors for months on end until they raised his physical profile just high enough so he could enlist to the tank corps. Daniel absolutely loved the tank, both its complexity and its power. He became a disciplined, highly professional soldier, always striving for excellence. I saw him as a young man involved in self-actualization, wanting to be the best that he could be. Indeed, he was selected to be a commander and was chosen as the outstanding commander of the entire course. He continued thereafter to officers' course, where he excelled as well, and then received his own tank crew, known as Chesed Perez. He was then offered to participate in the next stage of development as an officer, to be a company commander. In fact, one of my last conversations with him was about his deliberations whether or not to continue further in the army. I felt that Daniel was at the best stage of his life that I'd ever seen him, and I was so impressed with his thought process and maturity. Then came October 7th. I have to admit that I thought Daniel's primary motivation was self-actualization and self-fulfillment, personal achievement, and not selflessness for a greater cause. How wrong I was. A great gift we received from Daniel was his diary that was returned from Nachal Oz base, a diary we knew nothing about. Now that he was an officer, commanding soldiers for the first time and making literally life and death decisions, he began to be deeply introspective. On the opening page, he wrote a heading, "The Things I Think About Before Going to Sleep." Here he asked himself a question: why am I here? To this he answered that since he had gone to Poland in grade 11, he understood the price the Jewish people had paid when they did not have the ability to defend themselves. Now that he's a soldier and commander, he felt he had this duty to defend his people. And then, on a separate line, he wrote a charge to himself: "Im lo ani azmi," if not me, then who? It was this very sentiment of taking full responsibility for others that was exactly what drove Daniel on the most fateful day, not only in his life, but of the Jewish people in our generation. On that day, Daniel and his tank crew fought valiantly for 2¼ hours against the first wave of Nukhba terrorists. He then noticed tens of motorbikes crossing the border, the second wave, each armed with an RPG. He could have remained in the safety of his tent position and fired shells at them, killing some, but knowing all well that the majority would certainly get through. Fully aware that he was the last line of defense, Daniel did not hesitate for a moment. Without any concern for his safety, he left his position and charged straight at them. Shelling, shooting, zigzagging, trampling, Shebeirach Perez did all they could to stop every single terrorist until eventually his tank was overrun, where he was shot, killed, and taken hostage.
What's really, really special about this day and really inspires me personally is next to each grave of any halal, any person or soldier that has fallen for the state of Israel, there's an Israeli soldier that comes, speaks to the parents, supports them, really just gives them respect for what they've done for the country.
Daniel Ish Chamudot, Daniel the Beloved, that was what we wrote both on his bar mitzvah invitation and sadly on his grave. We also engraved 3 additional phrases that we believed encompassed who he was. He stuck to the mission at hand, fought with bravery, and saved many lives. You know, in looking back, I see how a young teenager, as teenagers are, focused on himself as the center of his life. How he grew into a self-actualizing 20-year-old focused on personal achievement, and then emerged as a courageous, selfless 22-year-old hero focused only on the well-being of others, genuine Mesirut Nefesh. You know, when speaking to Daniel's closest friends, and specifically when reading his diary, I'm reminded of the reflections of Otto Frank, the father of Anne Frank, when he read his daughter's diary. He said that only when reading the diary did he learn so much about his daughter that he didn't know, even though he spent years in such close proximity to her. So too do we feel that we learned parts about our son, significant parts that we never really knew. This fills us with both great pain and enormous pride at the very same time. On that day, when the Jewish people needed him most, Daniel was totally committed to what he had written to himself when he became an officer. If not me, then who?
An entire generation of young fighters, as exemplified by Daniel Hashem Yikom Damo, together with his brother and best friend Yonatan, who also fought bravely and was injured, revealed to us who they really were. A selfless and heroic generation, willing to sacrifice their lives to protect our people, our land, and everything we stand for.
Thank you, Moshe. So I just want to say, Ari, we got the stickers here. Can I ask you to bring me a sticker and just a block? I just want to thank you, Ari. Thanks. Thank you. So we made these stickers, and there's a whole bunch over here you can take if you want. Imlo ani azmi, as I explained in the video, that's what Daniel wrote in his diary about his responsibility for himself to do what he can for the Jewish people. And I think that's what happened on that day. People like Daniel, thousands and thousands and thousands, came forward, citizens and soldiers alike, to do anything, everything they could for our people. And I think it's that, along with Hashem's divine providence, which should change the tide. And it's that same drive which continues until today, of all for one and one for all. This arvut hadadit, that we one people. And I want to just share one other thing, and then I want to, with your permission, just to segue briefly to the elections and how it connects to what we just said. Some of you may be familiar with this blog. This is a project of my wife. It's a project that her and her friend Naomi Feinmesser initiated. It's a project called Bayit B'chol Bayit, a home in every home. It's a picture of the Beit HaMikdash. Why do we have a picture of the Beit HaMikdash? What's it got to do with Gaza? So the crazy thing is that thousands and thousands of Israeli soldiers were flabbergasted. Is there such a word in America? Flabbergasted? I sometimes use these South African words and people look at me and say, no, we don't say that, Rabbi. So I just now and then, if I use the word, absolutely flabbergasted that in every single home in Gaza, in every single child's room in Gaza, above every single crib, almost without fail, there's a picture of Al-Aqsa Mosque. In every Hamas logo and insignia, you'll see multiple pictures of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The name of the war, Hamas called Tufan Al-Aqsa, the Al-Aqsa flood. They know exactly what they're fighting for. A soldier came home from Gaza, and there was a Facebook post about it, and his mother said, I can't wait to see you. And he said, I can't wait to see you, Mom, but I'm going to Jerusalem and I'm going to buy a picture of the Beit HaMikdash to put in my bedroom, and I'll see you. She says, well, hang on, my son. I haven't seen you in 100 days. What happened to you in Gaza? You come back from Gaza and the first thing you want to do is buy a picture of the Beit HaMikdash? I mean, that's the most important thing after 100 days in Gaza. He said, Mom, you don't understand. I saw in Gaza in every single room, almost without fail. They know what they're fighting for. Maybe I've forgotten what it's all about for us. My wife saw this and she said, wow, if they can have such hatred and do the most barbaric things for a connection to a place that we should have a much deeper connection to, through love, yearning and aspiration, then maybe we should deepen that connection. So this is called Bait B'chol Bait. A picture of the Beit HaMikdash in every home. It's Sefer Vayikra now, where we work about the inner workings of the Mishkan, Beit HaMikdash. And it says, Yiratzon Shivaneh Beit HaMikdash, and it says, Leilui Nishmat Daniel Perez, for the fallen soldiers, holy fallen soldiers, for the safe return of all the hostages. So it's a project we've sold about 16,500 worldwide. I brought a few over here. You can purchase them for $10 so that they go to maintain the project. We employ somebody to run it. So I do have some, and you can buy one if you would like. And that's the project of Bait B'chol Bait. I want to end and say, for me, this last 18 months has been the most painful period in my life and the most privileged period. From day one until today, our family has experienced incredible pain, loss and yearning, but incredible blessing, happiness and appreciation. I don't know why it worked out this way, but our Shem cursed and blessed our family. He caused our family immeasurable pain, but immeasurable happiness at the same time. Both of our sons fought on that day. One of our sons was taken from us in a moment, 163 days of excruciating pain of whether he's alive or not alive, finding out that he's dead, burying his uniform, not knowing where he is, who's holding him. It's probably held by Islamic Jihad. That's what it seems like, we don't know. And just this ongoing, it's hard enough to lose somebody, to know that they're a hostage, to not know if we'll ever be able to bring them to burial, which we hope and pray. But that's not the only thing our family experienced. On the very, very same day, another of our sons fought, and Hashem spared that son. He went to fight with a handgun, 2 handguns. He took his handgun and his brother's handgun from the safe because his M16 he left in the base of the paratroopers. And he fought for 6 hours, the first few hours with a handgun, no helmets, no shachpats, no vest. Somebody from Sayed Matkal was shot and taken to the hospital. He went and took his helmet out the ambulance. He went into the ambulance and he took his helmet. His friend Yedidia Sror, who was with him in paratroopers, was shot in the stomach and his magazine, the bullets exploded in his stomach. He was almost killed. And as they were taking him to the hospital, he said, "Throw me Yedidya's gun and throw me his shachpats." And that's what he fought with. I gave a talk recently and I saw a woman in the audience and I said, "Where do I know you from?" And she said, "I'm Yedidya's wife." I was very, very emotional. I said, "Had your husband, thank God he's okay today, not been so badly wounded, I don't know if my son would have survived. He wouldn't have had a machine gun. He wouldn't have had a shachpats." And Yonatan continued to fight. And there's so many times on that day that he has to make the bracha of Baruch Asher Sani Nes B'makom Hazeh, until he eventually went into Nachal Oz. There's a picture. Do you know who that is? Can you see above the door? Who's that man? Yeah, above the door. Can you see? Look up. The picture. That's Arnon Zmora. That's after him was Mivtza Arnon when they went to save. Who was saving Mivtza Arnon? It was Naragamani. Mivtza Arnon. My son Yonatan met Noam as he came into Nachal Oz base. Yonatan was the first soldier who stepped into Nachal Oz base at 1 o'clock to save the remaining soldiers. Yonatan and his team saved 20 soldiers, 20 female soldiers and 2 male soldiers. And as he took the first 7 out, Yonatan was the only soldier of all of the officers who had ever served in Nachal Oz base. He knew the base well. And they were on the phone with 7 soldiers who managed to climb out of the burning operation room where all the remaining ones, unfortunately, were burnt to death. And they went straight to the operation room via the back, managed to avoid a whole bunch of terrorists, and managed to take the first 7 out. And as he was walking out, in came Arnon Zmora and a bunch of Yamam soldiers. And Yonatan and Arnon divided up the base. Arnon took the southern part of the base, and Yonatan the northern part, and fought for another few hours until he himself, Yonatan, was shot in the thigh. The soldier on the left of him was shot in the back, and the one on the right of him was shot in the stomach. Thank God they're all okay today. Hashem spared Yonatan. He spared him. Yonatan got married 10 days later. We got up.
Pictures of that.
Picture of?
Your son.
Of Yonatan? Oh, is there a picture of Yonatan somewhere?
It's when the wedding.
Oh, there's a picture of the wedding. Oh, there you go. Shkoyach, so yeah. Thanks so much. I need to give you a book now to reward you. I already gave it to you, sorry. Yeah, I'm joking. I'll give you another one for Jeff. So that's a picture of Yonatan and Galia's wedding on the 17th of October, 10 days later. And that's a whole story in and of itself. But we had a simcha. A few months after we got up from Shiva for Daniel, our son and daughter-in-law came to tell us that they're expecting a child, and it's a boy. And the expectation date is Purim, the same day that we got up from Shiva, from Daniel. A year later, the baby was born on Motzei Purim Shulash on Sunday night. So 2 weeks ago, they had a baby boy. Last week he was named Ori Daniel. And thank you. So that's the first son, the first child for my son and his daughter and his wife. The first grandson for my wife and I, grandchild, the first great-grandchild for my parents. And it's very, very special. So, and they live in Kibbutz Saad because that's where her family live, and he's still in the army. He's in a special unit, so she doesn't see him a lot. So she lives close to her parents. And Kibbutz Saad is about 2 kilometers from Nachal Oz. And there's something, this eerie, this whole connection. I feel for me and our family, from day one until today, there's been so much pain and suffering, but so much happiness, so much joy, so much blessing. And I think it's the story of the Jewish people, and that's been our story, with all of it happening together. I'm not going to speak about it now. I've spoken in a lot of my talks about it, about holding these emotions together. I want to end and say that there's only one Slate movement ideology. It's painful for me to say this, because I didn't think this would be the reality after October 7th. I didn't think we'd find people digging in their heels and saying, we're not serving in the army now. I've got to be honest with you, I feel very, very close to the Haredi world. I spent 10 years in yeshiva. I feel a tremendous kinship with Lomdei Torah. I've never, ever, until October 7th, had any timer on any religious Jew if they don't want to serve in the army, for a very simple reason. Ben Gurion signed an agreement with the Chazon Ish that those who are learning Torah can defer their army service. It was renewed for 75 years. Secondly, the army itself, until October 7th, said, we don't need more soldiers. The army made a very big mistake. It said we don't need more soldiers. It said we don't need more combat soldiers. It said we don't need more tank divisions. We just need a small tzava chacham v'katan. Turns out we need a tzava gadol v'chazak. Everything changed on October 7th. Everything. 10,000 wounded combat soldiers, almost 1,000 dead. There isn't a family in the religious Zionist world which doesn't have a child, a father, a grandfather, an auntie and uncle who's been almost 1 year in reserve duty. Their family's falling apart because Israel's army is mainly built on its reservists. We're a people's army. We can't win one war without reservists. And the burden of responsibility is falling on so few. Now's the time to dig your heels in. I'm not here to judge anybody else. Nothing good comes out of judging anyone. I'm just here to say I feel so proud and so privileged to be part of a community which deeply, deeply believes in absolute commitment to Torah learning, and at the same time in the spirit of King David and Joshua and Moshe Rabbeinu and Abraham. Abraham Avinu dropped everything to take his entire household to save one captured Jew. His errant nephew Lot. Moshe Rabbeinu B'char L'cha Anashim fought himself against Amalek. His greatest student in Yeshiva Bocha, Yehoshua, led the battle for the conquest of the land. And our greatest political leader, King David himself, led the battles from the front. And those who say that's only in the biblical era, it's not true. The Hashmonaim did the same thing, the Hasmoneans. I just feel privileged to be part of a community which believes in a deep connection to Torah Judaism and a deep connection to serving the Jewish people on the front lines when we need it most. I don't think one derech is necessarily more right than the other. Our sages have taught us, Eilu va'eilu divrei Elokim Chaim. None of us have an absolute ownership of the truth. The truth is complex. None of us know for sure what the truth is. And therefore there are different views, and I think part of accepting is knowing that there are different views. I just feel very, very proud that we're part of a community which believes that we have to do both together. This has been the most painful and the most privileged hour of the religious Zionist communities. That is what this election is about. Who will represent you and us in the national institutions from around the world? I don't know if you will know this, and I know most of you, I'm sure, have voted already. But this election, I call it the best kept secret from diaspora jury. This election dictates one of the most incredible organizations in the world, the World Zionist Organization, which owns the most powerful and impactful non-profit organization in the world. And do you know what it is? What does the World Zionist Organization own, and that every single American Jew 18 and above can vote for and has a stake in? Do you know what it owns? Sorry? Keren Kamet Israel. And what is Keren Kamet Israel? It owns, listen to this, the vast, not just the forest. Well, you think that Kakal is the forests. It's the forests on the land of Israel. Listen to this. This is the best kept secret of the diaspora Jews. Do you know that Israel did not nationalize its land ownership in 1948? It strategically, for all types of reasons, kept it under the World Zionist Organization. The house I live in Yad Binyamin, we have a 99-year lease. We don't own it. If anybody owns it, the bank does. But we've leased it. Our bank Mizrachi, keep it at home. Bank Mizrachi, the Mashkanta division, and the Perez family have a 99-year lease on our home in Yad Binyamin. Who actually owns it? Keren Kamet Israel. When we bought it, we paid a 30% land tax to Keren Kamet Israel. It's the largest Jewish real estate company in the world. It owns most of the inhabited land in Israel. And who owns Keren Kamet? Hold on to your chairs. 100% owned by the World Zionist Organization. Who owns the World Zionist Organization? It's the best Jewish electoral college in the world. 40% owned by the Israelis who vote in the Israeli elections. 30% by American Jews in this election. 30% by Jews from the rest of the world. I call it the best kept secret from diaspora Jews. Like, well, what are these silly elections about? Well, they're just about control of the World Zionist Organization, which controls the billions of dollars every year of spending of Keren Kamet Israel. Such decisions as will land development from the Keren Kamet, I just want to be clear, this doesn't affect the hundreds of billions of dollars of Israel taxpayers which goes to the Knesset. They can decide what they want to do. But there are a few $1 billion which are not running through the Knesset, they're running through Keren Kamet Israel. That's decided by this election. Which lands will be developed? Will any land in East Jerusalem and Yehuda Shomron and be developed or not? Will the money go to develop yeshivot, midrashot, which encourage people to study Torah and to serve in the Israeli army? Will it go towards bolstering the crumbling families of reservists we've never fought a war as long as this, and we've never been under such pressure as a country militarily. These decisions are made 100% by the World Zionist Organization in Kakao. And every single one of you can play a role. Now, this room is a room of activists. And it's not a room of individuals. The four walls of this Merkaz have changed the course of Jewish history in America and in Israel. What a few people can do is just unbelievable. I mean, look around what this room is all about. Everyone in this room says not only are we going to vote, and that's Pashut, but we're going to bring every single person we know. Every single person we know. Our siblings, our parents, our children, our aunties, our uncles, your neighbor. Howdy neighbor, have you voted in the World Zionist Congress? Just vote for my friend Rav Perez. I'll tell you about him later. And you don't have to vote for me, it's not about me. It's about our derech. Baruch Hashem, the World Zionist Congress tent has become very broad. For the purpose of these elections, people who didn't see themselves as Zionists before, they're Zionists. Both on the religious right and on the progressive left. I personally think it's unbelievable. The broader the Zionist tent, the better. Anyone who's prepared to stand up and say, I'm a Zionist, that's unbelievable. Zionism is something we need people to get behind, no matter what their ideology. I'm all for that. But when there's a lot of competition, which is Baruch Hashem a good thing, because more and more Jews in the diaspora are realizing what's at stake. Competition is a very good thing. As long as you stand up. Kinat Sofrim, Tarbeh Chochma. It's good when there's competition. It makes you not rest on your laurels. I always found in sport, I played my best against better sportsmen than me. I played my best when teams were better, because the better they are, you've got to up your game. You've got to up your game. We have to up our game as a religious Zionist community. Our community is no less religious in its commitment to Torah, the land and state of Israel and the people of Israel, than any other community, I'd say even more so, because it's got a love of the Jewish people, a love of the Torah, and a love of the land and state of Israel. Our community has paid the ultimate price. In this room, I'm sure there are people with children, and with grandchildren, and with nieces, and with nephews, and with cousins, all serving in the front lines and in Shebeirach Leumi. Our community is on the front lines. This is one opportunity where you don't need to be an Israeli to be able to say, let's have our values represented in these institutions for policy and decisions of budgets, that the flavor of our community should be represented. And I'm sure you all know the drill. We've got people here. We've got Ariel. Do you want to stand up? I know that Ariel's been working. Stand up, Ariel. Ariel, as you can see, is half asleep because Ariel has been working 24/6, 24/7, left his family in Israel for the elections he works with. Ari is also the sleeping man standing. Ari running the elections in the US. Ariel from Israel. Where's our dream team members? Could you all stand up? These people, these young men and women. Please give them a big round of applause. They've left their families and they've joined us. We call them the dream team. The best of our young men and women who are coming, and to just encourage as many of our community to say, let's stand up and let's back ourselves. You know, Professor Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb said that the challenge of the modern Orthodox community is that it's become moderately passionate instead of passionately moderate. There should be no less fervor in our religious values than anyone else. If we are moderately passionate about Judaism, then we're missing the mark. Do you know what our call is, and what is so lacking in the world, in my opinion, is people who are passionately moderate, passionate bridge builders. My biggest fear in Israel, and it's coming to the World Zionist Organization, of all monolithic ideologies, opposing the one, fighting the one, like it's happening in Israel. It's good to have machloket. It's good to have diversity. That's what it means to be part of the Jewish people. But now's the time where we need passionate bridge builders. I believe that Mizrachi's unique role in our Orthodox Israel coalition, by the way, you know we're a coalition. It's not just Mizrachi. It's Mizrachi and Amit, and Bnei Akiva, and the OU, and Yeshiva University, and Torah, and RCA, and National Council of Young Israel, and. It's a coalition of people who believe in what I call Torah Torah, Umada, Torah and general studies and knowledge. Torah, Vitzava, Torah and Zionism, religious Zionism, is to incorporate all of these things. And I just want to say to all of you, Baruch Hashem, we're a wonderful people with many different ideologies. That's what makes us special. But we also have something very, very, very special. A deep commitment to the love of the Jewish people, love of Torah, the love of the land and state of Israel, the love of the Israeli army, to serve in the Israeli army. And it's this complexity that I think is more needed now than ever. I think if last time around we got 22,700 votes out of 123,000, this time it looks like we're going to be at least 250,000 people voting. Already over 102,000 people have voted in 3 weeks. It's a 50-day election. I mean, who has a 50-day election? I don't know. Who thought of that brilliant idea? And that's why all of us are half asleep. You can campaign for 1 day, campaign for 50 days. And by the way, there's now going to be elections in every country around the world for the first time for all types of reasons. This is an opportunity for our community not to be moderately passionate, but to be passionately moderate. That's what this centre is about. It's about stepping forward with passion to say we can be as frum and with passionate fervour about Torah Judaism, and equally passionate about the state of Israel, not just the land of Israel, the state of Israel, and partnering together with religious and secular, left and right together. That's what our community is about, from left to right. It's a very special derech. It's one whose time has come to continue to play a major leadership role. And just to ask you all, please join us. I don't know if does anybody want to add to this, Ari? No? Okay. You know that when Moish is telling me enough, then you know it's enough. And I can just end and say to all of you, you know what to do and how to vote. There are stickers available to take. There are these blocks if you'd like to buy for $10. And most importantly, please join us not only as voters but as ambassadors and vote collectors to ensure that the religious Zionist movement is strong in representing this complexity at a time that the Jewish people so desperately needs integration, cohesion, and unity. Thank you very much.
I think we as Jews know that God creates all over the world elections. This community does not know anything about this election. So if anyone has any questions, now's a good time to ask. Rabbi's explained a few things, but does anyone have any questions regarding what they've heard, what they've seen? Now's the time.
So I'll just take questions for a few minutes because I know that it's late. I know that Moshe says V'hurachum and Jeff says questions. But just for 5 minutes, if you've got any question you want, anything you want to ask about these elections? Yes?
What came out this past week, really religious people saying you shouldn't be voting in this, it sounds crazy.
The question is that there is a OIC Slate running in these elections for the second time. It's called Eretz HaKodesh. I think it's an amazing thing that yeshivish, ultra-Orthodox Jews who until now maybe were not so overt about their support for the Zionist movement. I think it's an amazing thing. But there are very strong voices in Aguda in America and in leading rabbis in Israel who say that we Haredim and Haredim have not embraced the state of Israel and the army the way that the Zionists have, and therefore this is an election of the world Zionist movement. That's what Mizrachi does. It's not what Haredim do. And that's the controversy. And therefore it is splitting the yeshivish community. Agudat Yisrael and Rav Malkiel Kotler and others came up with statements to say not to vote. And that's the debate within the Haredi community. Thankfully, every rabbi in the religious Zionist community, from Moreno Rav Herschel Schechter, Rav Rimon Shlita, and every rabbi in the Dati Lumi community says, vote in these elections because we are religious Zionists. Any other questions? One final question, and I'll let you go. Any question you want to ask about these elections? One final question.
When's the final day?
Sorry?
When's the last day of voting?
The last day of voting. Yes. The last day to vote is the 4th of May. It's from the 10th of March to the 4th of May. We 20 days in, 19 days in. So just to say to you, one of my friends said to me, Doron, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. I said, no, it's a sprinting marathon. You just start running as fast as you can. So literally, we've got till the 4th of May, and we've got an unbelievable community of our modern Orthodox religious Zionist community. We've just got to get people out and say, let's do what we can to play a leadership role in these organizations. Thank you very much for the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you. Nice
to meet you. Lovely to meet you
have to
too.
tell every rabbi?
Yeah.
Every single rabbi.
It's my brother. Okay, we're going to daven Marav. Everybody wants to daven Marav. We're going to daven Marav right now.